Hello my internet peeps, how are you today? This is Scott Rideshare. So this one is going to be a little bit differently. It's going to be a little different. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Ray, who is a frequent commenter. And I'm not going to say that I pay Ray to watch my videos and comment on it. I'm not going to say that, okay? But I do want to say thank you, Ray. Ray posted an article about 3 weeks ago. It was a news article, and it was talking about how Uber has devalued the medallions, New York City medallion cabs. And first, I do kind of feel bad for anyone who wants to discuss news with me, because I don't generally discuss news. I could do a whole video on it. First of all, there's a lot of guys out there who, in my opinion, do a much better job at reporting the news than I could ever do. And that's reporting it. That's not necessarily giving commentaries on it. And when I give commentaries, I have a tendency to kind of sit back and watch things as opposed to reading an article and commenting on it, or watching a newscast and commenting on it. And my reasons for that, I could probably do a whole video on that, but we can go all the way back to USA for Africa. A long time ago, back in the mid-'80s, there was a song that was put out, and it was basically to feed African people, starving African people. And I'm going to post a Reddit article down below, which kind of explains a little bit of what I'm talking about if you're interested in reading it. But all the money that was raised for that, not all of it went to the people. And the reason why is because the government kind of stood in the way and said, oh yes, we graciously accept this on behalf of our people. And then they kind of set up concentration camps to hoard people in. And it caused, in some people's opinion, it caused more problems than it helped create. Because what's hard for people to understand is things like famine in countries like Africa. Sorry, Africa's a continent. In countries that are in Africa, similar to that, the problem lies mostly with the government. And it's not like there's not enough food to go around. It's that they don't allow poor people to have access to it. It's a whole thing. I could probably do a whole video just on that alone. It wouldn't be funny, but I could probably do a whole video on that, just that alone. So it's kind of one of the reasons why I don't really get into news a whole lot. Now, as far as the article is concerned, it was talking about the value of medallions, New York City taxi medallions. So let me try to explain medallions for those of you who don't know, who've never really lived in New York City, don't really know what it is. Back in the 30s, Depression, and a lot of people decided they were going to drive rich people around. In order to make money, they needed a job. So Mayor LaGuardia regulated that and capped it with a medallion. So they only allow so many medallions out on the road ever since then. And as a result of that, the value of the medallions just kept rising because it's limited. It's simple supply and demand. And I believe at one point a medallion sold for $1 million. I'm not sure it's gone any higher than that. Now, a lot of people have a tendency to think that somebody who buys $1 million medallion is rich. It's not necessarily what's happening. People are mortgaging their houses in order to pay for it. And they're in debt up to, in order to pay for it. And what will happen is you'll have 3 people, maybe 4, working to pay off the debt on this medallion. So what will happen is I'll drive a yellow cab for somebody who owes money on this medallion, and I'm essentially renting the car and paying the guy in order to drive. And I have to make enough money to pay him and then pay my bills. So it's not like everybody is getting rich off it. Are there people that have gotten rich off it? Yes, but not everybody. So anyway, once Uber came along, the value of the medallions started dropping because people started using Uber and Lyft, rideshare. Now, for me, understanding where I come from, I've always believed that technology is invasive and disruptive. It always has been and always will be. I'm going to go back just a few years before I was born. There used to be a lot of horse and buggy carriages rolling down the street. And there's this newfangled contraption called a car that came along and mostly put them out of business. Now, when I say mostly, is because you still have horse and buggy carriages. You don't see a whole lot of them. If you're ever in New York, take a horse and carriage buggy ride through Central Park. Do it during the day, but it would be worth it just for the experience, okay? Also, do it in the summertime, not the wintertime, but I recommend everyone do it at least once in their lives, okay? You still have horse and buggy carriages out there, and people have to make them and repair them and all kinds of stuff. So that business is still there. But is it there like it was before the automobile came along? No, not at all, not even close. And I mean, of course, you still have horse and buggy carriage in Amish country where they don't use automobiles. All right, and when I worked for Blockbuster in the late '80s, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my companies. When I worked for Blockbuster starting in the early '90s, they were talking about how we were gonna be ordered to order movies through our phone lines. And you have to understand that phones back then were not the way phones are now. First of all, everyone owned phone lines. There were no smartphones. Not everyone owned cell phones. If you did, they kind of developed to flip up. I don't even remember if they had flip up phones back then. But you punch in some numbers. I mean, seriously, at that point, it was hard to conceive that I would be sitting at home and through the phone order a movie. Of course, now we have digital streaming, and first it had to go to DVRs, and then now it's on iPads, it's on phones, it's all over the place. But back then, it was hard to conceive, and as a result, among many other things, Netflix put Blockbuster out of business. The technology was disruptive and invasive. Now, there was also a time where we used to go to the record store. Some of you may not even get that reference, sorry. But there are times where we'd go to the record store and we would buy 45s, which were singles, or the albums, which were 33 RPMs, 33 and a half RPMs. And we would put it on a record player and play the songs. And of course, eventually now, everyone kind of just digitally downloads music. It's not like people go to record stores anymore. Now look, record stores are still out there. It was about a year and a half ago. I was taking my cousin. She was born when we still had records, but in her lifetime, she'd never really seen them. And I was showing her what albums looked like and what a record player looked like, and she was fascinated. This quaint little technology we had. but the fact of the matter is that record players are still out there, and what it takes is somebody who's older like me to show somebody who's younger the value behind a record player. Why would you do that as opposed to digitally, So it's not dead, but it's mostly gone. Most people don't know about it. Most people don't use it, okay? Then we have, I want to kind of move to something else a little bit. I worked for the airlines in the early 80s. And this was it was Piedmont Airlines, and I worked at LaGuardia Airport. And when I was there, I was kind of watching what was going around. And you had three huge airlines at the time: American Airlines, Pan Am or Pan American Airlines, and Eastern Airlines. And from where I was sitting, working for Piedmont, I could see that American was going to survive. Pan Am, I was kind of on the fence about. I wasn't sure. I could tell there were things they were doing, and then there were other things that they may not have survived. In Eastern, I saw it as a dinosaur. And if you take a look at dinosaur movies, you'll see that the dinosaur is dead. King Kong killed the dinosaur, and the dinosaur is laying there and it's twitching, and the person's trying to sneak past it, and wondering if it's alive or not, because it's still moving. No, it's dead. It's in death throes. It's twitching. And I kind of believe that that's what Uber did to taxi service. Now, I believe taxi services will survive for a time, for a long time actually. First of all, you got older folk who, they're going to still call cabs. They're not going to grasp the new technology. I talked to my aunt, who's not that much older than me, and every time we talk about rideshare, she's not grasping the concept. She asks questions about calling a dispatcher, and if you have a bad experience, do you call the dispatcher? And I'm sitting there going, no, you push a button. There's no dispatcher. And I'm trying to explain it to her, and because she's never ridden in one, she's got her own car. Because she's never ridden in one, she's not fully grasping it. And people should experience it. Also, I remember about 20 years ago, United States Postal Service switched. Down here in South Florida, we have a lot of what's known as snowbirds. They would come down for 6 months and then go back for 6 months. And at some point, United States Postal Service stopped having those mail forwarding cards. You had to do it online. And a lot of the older folks are like, what are you talking about online? What is this? What's going on here? And they couldn't grasp the concept. Many of them didn't have computers. And to fill out a form online, they couldn't understand that or grasp that. Now, the United States Postal Service could have made it easier by just putting a computer there that didn't really do anything other than you filling out those cards online. Do you follow what I'm saying? They could have just made it that easy. But they weren't, and there was actually people who were kind of being personal assistants. Besides, driving all the folks around, they were also filling out call forwarding, mail forwarding forms for them online. But that's what I mean about technologies being disruptive. And older people are not going to be able to grasp this right away. And until they're all dead and gone, you're going to have people ordering cabs still. Also, you're going to have wheelchair services, which Uber and Lyft hasn't jumped over to that yet, completely and fully. I'm sure it's out there, but it's not out there or as prevalent for people. It's if I owned a car with the wheelchair lift in it, I'm probably not going to drive for Uber or Lyft. I'd probably have my own business doing it. But cabbies do have that. I've seen yellow cabs do it. Down here, Yellow Cab Company does it. I'm pretty sure up in New York and around the country, cab companies provide that service. So that's still going to be around. Okay, then this country is a very how do I say this? We're very consumer orientated. Okay, for decades, to anyone who'd listen, I would always say that zombie movies are a perfect metaphor for American consumerism. I've worked in retail for a long time, and I know what that's like. And we've also kind of given our powers over to the financial institutions, and because of that, and wages have remained flat. And there are a number of factors involved in this, but people are like at the precipice, or if they've already gone over, they've destroyed their credit so they can't use Uber and Lyft, or they're at the precipice about to go over. I mean, I can't tell you how many passengers I've picked up, and they said to me, I didn't have enough money on my card to go all the way to work. Now, they're not understanding exactly how it works, but I explained to them, just do 2 stops. You do a stop at the bank, and then you do a stop at work, and that way you don't have to order a new driver when we get to the bank. Now, they didn't have to order a new driver. They could have just, asked me to hang on and then change the address, or put the at work address and ask me to go to the bank. But it's better to do multiple stops, really it is. But anyway, I would take them to the bank. They would go to the bank. They would take the money out of their account and pay their card so they can get to work. I mean, there's a lot of people out there juggling like that. You have no idea. All right, so because we have that, we have a lot of credit getting ruined, and people can't go towards Uber and Lyft. So they're going to do cabs, cash, right? Then New York, I love you. You're a great town. You're going to almost always have people that are going to want to walk out onto a curb and just do this and have a cabbie roll up to them. And by the way, if you go out onto the curb and you do this, you try to hail an Uber or Lyft, legally they cannot do that. Well, honestly, I'm not paying attention to all the laws on it. But my understanding is only people with medallions can pull over when you hail them. That was one of the purposes behind getting a medallion, was that if somebody hailed you, you can pull over and get them. So, as a result of that, people are going to want to do it. Now, do I believe at some point they'll be gone? Self-driving cars are going to come along. People are going to adopt to new things. Yes. I don't think it'll completely go away. I think certain people will do certain things, but you're not going to see. Yes, the value of the medallions are going to drop because not as many people are going to be able to make money from somebody hailing them. But it may not completely go away until we get, we're talking 10, 20 years down the road where you're going to have self-driving cars, and who knows where all that's going to lead us to. But in any case, that's what I think about the medallions' value dropping, is technologies come along and they're intrusive and disruptive. And it always changes things. We keep changing as we go along. We just, most of us just kind of adapt to it. Some of us don't, but those of us that don't are generally the older ones, and eventually, they shuffle off this mortal coil. But, yeah, Uber's, the value of the medallion is going to drop even further. You're still going to have a lot of cabs on the road, but you won't have as, it won't be nothing like it was. It's pretty much dead. And that's kind of what I think about it. I don't really have much more to say about it. I do know that in that same time frame, they just announced that they're capping the amount of Uber and Lyft drivers in New York City. Now, I believe they just put drivers, but that's not going to stop the cars. For example, I might be able to have several cars. I think I'll have to look into it. I never really bothered to look into it, but I might be able to have 7 cars under 7 different platforms. In other words, I can have a big black SUV and ride on the SUV platform. I can have a luxury car and drive on the luxury platform. I could also drive on the regular X/pool platform on the Uber, and then Lyft is, they have their own similar things. Now, if I've got those 3 cars going, I could sit there and drive the luxury, the SUV, and then I could rent out my SUV. I could have cars on the road 24/7. So it's similar to a medallion system. And I believe people are going to work around things until they get caught. Who knows where it's going to go? It's still all brand new. We haven't seen the results of it yet. One of the reasons why I don't really talk about it is that people try to figure a way around things. A long time ago when I worked for Blockbuster, we switched from dial safes to touch safes, LED touch safes. And I was sitting in the back with the guy when he was switching it out, and he was telling me, we don't really know how to break into these safes. What happens is we design the safes, and when somebody breaks into it, after the court case is over with, we get the safe back, we figure out how they break into it, and we redesign the safe based on that. So essentially, the criminals are the research and development department for safes. And I believe that's the way a lot of things are. What happens is something comes out there, and somebody figures a way around. There's some kind of loophole somewhere, and then they figure out how to close the loophole. So as far as what's going to happen when they cap the number of Lyft and Uber drivers, who knows where that's going to lead? We don't know yet. It's still brand new. It was just announced not too long ago. But I do believe that the value of the medallions are going to drop even further, and there are going to be less cabs on the road because there'll be more Uber and Lyft. Who knows? We got to see where it balances out. But at this point, I do believe technology is invasive and disruptive, and I see the taxi industry as dead. It's in its death throes. Now, is it going to die completely like the vinyl records are still around and like horse and buggy carriages are still around? No, it's not going to die completely. But you're still going to have people buying medallions, and you're still going to have people out there working, 3 people to 1 car, working on 8-hour shifts, 24/7, to pay off the value of the medallion because they'll be making less money. And they'll be making less money because people will be using cabs less. So, it's just the way of the world, in my opinion. That's the way things work. And the self-driving car is going to kill off a lot of other things. It'll kill off truck drivers. It's going to kill off cabbies as well. It's going to kill off Uber and Lyft. There was a recent news article, which I haven't had a chance to read, and he was talking about how the Uber CEO said the future of the company lies in bike rentals. Well, okay. No, I think he reads the writing on the wall that once the self-driving car gets there, guys like me aren't going to be out there with our cars. Some of us will. Listen, some people are going to figure out how to make money doing it, believe me. But at that point, am I going to sit there and let my car be out there 24/7 riding? First of all, am I going to be able to afford the car? There's a whole thing behind it, because I believe the price of ordering a ride will be so cheap that buying the car and maintaining the car will not be worth it. Now, maybe I'll buy the car and maybe I'll just have it out there working while I'm sleeping. Who knows? I don't think so, but I think some people will. I think some people are gonna, get a car, get it out there on the road, and just have it keep working. I believe some people will set themselves up where they're going to have several cars out there. But mostly I believe that whatever rental car companies survive until the self-driving car gets here, those are the ones that are going to be the future Uber/Lyfts, because the self-driving cars, you want to get a car, you just push a button and Hertz or Enterprise or Avis will send you the car. It'll show up right outside your door. And you can rent it for a month, but why bother? You just rent it per ride. And they have all the infrastructure set up. They have the space where the cars are. They have people who can clean the cars. So anyway, that's where I think the future is. And I think technology is disruptive, and we just kind of move on. And that's what I believe is going on with the taxi cab industry. That it's dead, and it's just in its death throes moving around. And they'll still need taxi cab drivers for a while, but it's going to diminish and diminish and diminish. Anyway, hope you liked the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. Check out the links down below in the subscription box. Right now, while you can still make some money, I think it's a great part-time work. And there's links down below for that. If you're a passenger, you have Uber, go ahead and add Lyft to your account. The links are down below for that. If you have Lyft, go ahead and add Uber. And then price compare between the two. I think competition is great for everybody. Anyway, this is Scott Rideshare. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day. Goodbye.